Good evening. 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the regular meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Wertz.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Rust.
Here.
Trent. Here. Griffin.
Here.
Ware.
Here.
Campbell.
Thank you. Pledge allegiance, please. Before we proceed, I'd like to talk about, we lost a great man, Bob Watson, who was a board chairman here for 39 years. He was on the board for 44 years, which is just amazing. Bob, I got the honor to know Bob from being on the board of him. He was a great leader. He had a sense of humor, and he always had the best interest for the college and the students involved. And I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Bob, please. Thank you. Now is the time for public comment. Do we have anybody wishing to address the board? Okay, thank you.
An enrollment update. Will that be Sharice? Okay, perfect. You beat us to the podium.
Thought you were going to make a public
They
comment.
thought I was making a comment, so that's why everyone was
Threw us off.
No, I just wanted to be ready. Good evening. So just a quick enrollment update for spring 2025. We are up 2.46%. That is, last year at this time, we were at 2,233. And this year we're at 2,288. We continue to enroll students. Of course, we had a few days last week with being out of the office, and we had a purge for non-payment. So we were continuing to get those students back enrolled, as well as enrolling new students. We just had a list pulled, what we call our stop out students that were enrolled for one semester before and that are no longer enrolled. So we're going to reach out to those students as a last ditch effort as well to get them enrolled in classes. So thank you.
The audit presentation.
Good evening. My name is Robin Klingler. I'm a principal with Shuffle Boyle. And with me this evening is Julie Graham in the red dress here. She's a manager with us, and she's responsible for the audit field work. And I guess I just do her a favor to do the presentation. So I would like to start by making sure I give a thank you to your finance department, Mary, Donna, Cindy, Carrie, and the rest of their finance team. And this year we had to spend a lot of time working with Angela as part of the student financial aid testing that we did, and just like to thank them for their cooperation, their patience. They're very knowledgeable and hold each other accountable for their responsibilities. This was year 2 for us, and I would say that it went a lot smoother, and we were glad to see that I think on both parties. So with that, I will kind of talk, like you have probably either in a hard copy or electronic copy, our financial statements, which are this thick, or your financial statements. But what is comprised in there as a product of our work are 5 different opinions. And that seems like there's a lot of testing that goes along in that, and I'll just kind of outline those quickly. The first one in there, which would be found on page 1, is our independent auditor's report. And this is your report on the financial statements. And this is saying the college, as an entity-wide business-type activity, that your financial statements are fairly presented on a generally accepted accounting principles basis. So meaning it's an unmodified opinion, which is the cleanest opinion we can give. The next 2 opinions are towards more the back now. We're back on pages 83 and 91. And these are opinions that are required by the ICCB. And one of those is on the state adult education and family literacy grants. And they look for financial statement approval as well as compliance. That was also an unmodified opinion. And then there's one on the enrollment data that management certifies, and when we test those credit hours as well, that is also an unmodified, meaning no findings opinion. The next opinion is one that's required by government auditing standards. And so this is required based on your level of state and federal funding that you have. And so it requires us to follow government auditing standards and not just general auditing standards, which are a little stricter, and look for us to look at things like compliance and for specific general grants. We did not identify any deficiencies in internal control over the financial reporting that we would consider to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. And likewise, there were no compliance findings that would be required to be reported under the government auditing standards. And so when I say significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, just so you know, I would say that we find control deficiencies and grade them as small, medium, and large, and those would be of the medium and large type that we would put in writing and share with you, but we did not have those. If they're considered small, they're just things that we would talk to management about a little improvement that they could do. Along with the uniform guidance, which that is, you might have heard, a single audit, or where we specifically audit your federal expenditures. So the product here is a CFA, which is the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. And for fiscal year 24, you expended just under $11 million in federal awards for the college. And so that requires us to do specific compliance testing on major programs. So we look at all the different types of programs you have, rules on what we need to select. There were 2 programs that we need to select. And the first one is your student financial aid cluster. And so there's a lot of programs that go into that. That's a program that hasn't probably been looked at even in the last 2 years, because the last 2 years, your COVID funds have been dominant, where you were looking at how they were applying HER funds to student accounts and different things. So we're back to looking at student financial aid. And we also had to pick the Conservation Reserve Program, which was just under about $1 million of expenditures. Sorry, your student cluster was about $6 million of expenditures. And those programs overall also have unmodified clean opinions that those major programs were following the material compliance requirements. We did have 4 findings that we would cite as just compliance findings. And the way I look at these is, you know, I need to explain them to you, but when it comes to compliance, you either comply or you don't. It's all or nothing. So I try to think sometimes of these as, are you speeding if you go 56 and a 55? Yes, you are. And so these might seem sort of nitpicky, but in the world of compliance, like I'm saying, you either comply or you don't. And these findings were just simple, like the amount of days on a notification letter maybe needed to be changed to follow the requirement. The enrollment changes need to be reported within 60 days, and it might have taken a little bit longer on a sample that we chose. There's an information security program that just needed to have maybe specific requirements documented in the program, and so that was going to get improved. And there was one expenditure that was outside of the period of performance. The expenditure was valid, it was real, it just didn't happen within the grant period, and it was reported as part of a grant expenditure. So none of those are systemic problems, and they're all taken care of, and they all have responses, and I just want to just kind of explain those. So with that, we'll move into the sort of the highlights of your financial statements to talk about your fiscal year. And so to do that, in the front of your financial statements and kind of what's up here on the slides or whatever's maybe on your screens here, is your financial statements proceed with a management's discussion and analysis. And so what this does is even a nice, what I like is a shorter, condensed form of your financial statements that we can kind of talk about them a little more quicker and a little bit more high level. And so what we have here is your statement of net position, or many of you might think of it as your balance sheet, and what we're going to talk about is your assets and your liabilities. And so your total assets that for 6/30/24, you know, we're at that point in time, we're just over $250 million compared to $249.5 million last year. So this shows the 24 compared to the 23 with a column for the increase and the decrease. And so if you look at current assets, we're talking about cash, current investments, property taxes receivable in the next fiscal, any other types of accounts receivable, and those could be coming from students because of their fees. They could be your state and federal grants receivables, and any kind of prepaid expenses that you might have. So if you can look there, your current assets were $92.6 million, reasonably comparable with last year's $93.5. If I had to say what changed the most in there, there were increases slightly in cash and investments and taxes receivable, but were offset by the timing of a $4 million state grant from the IEPA, where you were able to collect that prior to 6/30/24 this year, as opposed to last year, it came after fiscal year end. So you kind of had the cash instead of the receivable. So that's sort of the biggest changes within there. The non-current assets are your capital assets, so it's all of the buildings, the equipment, the infrastructure, and this year's major projects that would be offset by depreciation were the fiber optic project, improving the Montessori parking lot, and maybe some improvements to your dental program and the equipment in the dental program. So that's kind of what went on there. If we move down to the liability section, you can see that total liabilities as of 6/30/24 were $97.8 million compared to $110.2, with a $12 million increase or decrease there. And I can just tell you right off the bat, that's just another year's worth of paying off debt. There's not a lot of other things that were moving significantly within here, but you haven't been issuing any new bonds, and you pay off kind of at the rate of about $10, $12 million a year. So your current liabilities, just to kind of get you flowing, were things like accounts payable and other accrued expenses, unearned tuition that you might have received in advance, but this semester hasn't transpired yet. Any unearned grants, some grants pay you up front, and then you just hold it until you expend the money, and then you earn it. As well as any current, like the 1 year's worth of debt that you'll have to pay. And then the non-current liabilities consist of things like, for many of you here last year, we talked about SBITAs, which stands for Subscription-Based Information Technology Arrangements, and that's any kind of software licenses that are multi-year type things, and that's like your Aleutian accounting software, or Blackboard or CourseDog that the college uses, as well as bonds and any compensated absences and any sort of OPEB type liabilities, things other than pension benefits that your employees have. And that's mostly your college insurance program that you're responsible for. And so those are sort of the changes in your balance sheet. You can see your overall net position improved. It's $126.8 million compared to $110.5. And that's really because of a product of the change in net position that we'll talk about on the next slide. Any questions on this page? All right, we move to the next page. This is sort of what we call your statement of activities, or a change in your position, or think of it as your income statement. And it starts here with your operating revenues. And your operating revenue was $7.9 million compared to $7.5 last year, with the largest increase coming in your tuition and fee line, which was about $300,000, which is a 6% increase over the prior year. So I also went back and looked at your enrollment and your credit hours, and your total unrestricted credit hours increased for the entire all terms for 6/30/24 by about 6,000, which is an 11% increase. And so we know that not all of those dollars equate to a dollar for dollar increase, because some of those are through high schools, like Mary was pointing out to me, or because you offer aid for some of those. But you had an 11% increase overall in your term hours, and resulted in a 6% increase in your tuition and fees. So the next line there is your operating expenses, and you're pretty consistent year over year, $59 million compared to $58.3. And the next page has a better detail of those. Those are all the expenses to run the college for the fiscal year. And then the next section is important because this is sort of all the non-operating revenues, or basically anything that is sort of government type funded. And so the line item for local taxes decreased about $800,000 from the prior year. And this line item would be your property taxes and the CPPRT monies that you receive from the state of Illinois. And just across all types of governments and municipalities, that revenue source was down for the fiscal year. And that was down 1.3 million, while your levy was up the 500,000 to get back to the 800. The state government line you can see is consistent year over year. Those are the grants that we're talking about from the ICCB, ISB, IDNR, IEPA, those kinds of things. Your federal government line is 11 million. It was 11.5 in the prior year, so you're down 500,000. And the biggest swings in your federal government program were last year you still had $1 million of CARES HERF money, all of that being gone for the most part. And in the current year, your Pell Grant was up about 500,000 to get back to that net change. If we skip down to the investment income, you can see it was 4.2 million, just under 2 million last year, so an increase of 2.3. And as we all kind of know, we're in a rising interest rate environment, and so that's reflected since you're so heavy on your investments and you can perform better. And what's also in this line item is your unrealized gains. So as your portfolio ends on 6/30/24, it was $500,000 improvement in your unrealized gains than it was at this time last year. And I think that's probably what I want to capture there. Anybody have any questions on this page? If we flip to the next page, I was going to say this is just a little short breakout of the operating expenses that I was referring to. And you can see the totals, the 59 million, which was on the operating expense line on the prior page. And this is broke out by program, so you can kind of see how do we spend our 59 million? What do we spend on instruction or academic support, student services, you know, and so forth. And so if you kind of look at there, you can, what the 2024% column there is telling you what percentage of the total expenditures that program is. So instruction is just about 27% of your total expenditures, which is consistent with the prior year. And your next largest one down below is the institutional support then of the instruction, which runs around 18%, and that's consistent year over year. The instruction line item is primarily made up of salaries, as you would expect. So that 15.9 million is made up of about 11 million in salaries, along with 4 million in benefits. The academic support line, you can see kind of had a decrease from the prior year. And that's because I'll just remind you that in 23, you had a focus on improving your overall tech plan. You bought a lot of tech supplies, and those are reflected in that line item. And then one of the last line items that had the larger increase was operation and maintenance of the plant. It was 8.5 compared to 7.4 in the prior year. And as we kind of look through the detail, those were all related to custodial or chosen salary security increases or even contracted security increases. So that's just a little explanation of your expenses. And then if you flip to, I guess, the last page that we provided here, this would just be something a little different. I didn't quite do this last year, but I thought it was a little interesting, so trying to, I guess, keep it original. This is the statement of cash flows, and it often doesn't get a lot of excitement when you look at your exhibits because you focus on your balance sheet or your income statement, and that's what people are used to seeing. But if you think of the college as a whole and you realize the amount of cash that's coming in and out of the college and where does it come from and what do we do with it, that's a reflection of this statement, and it kind of maps that out for you and tells you you have four categories basically where cash is considered. Is it operational? Is it coming from operating or being spent through operating? Is it coming from non-capital, which is like other revenues? Is it coming from capital or financing activities? And then is it a result of investing? So those are the four sections up there. And if you could look at it right at the top, you'll see under cash flows from operating, your tuition and fees provided you just under $11 million worth of cash. And then in turn, to earn those tuition fees, you either pay suppliers of $15 million or you pay employees and their benefits of about $29 million. You pay students for their scholarships of just under $8 million. So all in all, your operating activities use cash of about $40 million. So to think of the fact that you call this entity, this college, a business type activity, which the government standards tell you to do, typically business type activities are thought to be a little more self-funded. Well, this clearly isn't self-funding. You do have a huge reliance on other revenues, government support, and that shows in the next line item. You get $30 million of property taxes and just under $30 million worth of grants. And so we have, $61 million coming through from government support to run the college. So 61 over that 40 up there for operating, the next sections kind of tell you, well, what do you do with that extra cash? 3 million of it, you bought capital assets that I already kind of talked about, the fiber optic project. $12 million you paid down in debt. 3.7 you paid on the interest of all of that debt. And so that was the use of cash there. And in the investing section, if you just look at the total, it shows that negative 2.837 million, and that just means you bought more investments than what matured. So you were able to invest another 2.8 million. And so as a whole, that just kind of shows you maybe where the college in one fiscal year, and a high level, where the cash came from and where it went. So sometimes it can be a useful tool. Any questions on that? Yes, Julie.
Expenses, there's a line item called public services. Can you remind me what that is? Like 7 million?
Yes, I can. I might have to have Julie on help me on this one, because I didn't put a note on that one.
Sorry. I didn't
No,
make-
that's
make
okay. That's
everybody
okay. You just
scramble.
caught me on, or maybe Mary can
All
help.
of the rest of them make sense, but I don't know what the public services would be.
How about I'll let them look. I'll keep going and we'll come back to you,
Okay,
Julie. Is that
sounds
fine? Okay. But with that, there was a separate letter that we are required to share with those charged with governance and you, the trustees, and that would have been a separate letter that the standards say that we communicate with you. And this would show any other type of findings, like if we had difficulties during the audit, if we had disagreements, if we felt like there was any pressure, if you adopted any new accounting policies, which in the current year you did adopt the latest standard on accounting changes and error corrections, but it had no effect on your actual financial statements. And so this letter as well is clean and doesn't have any issues that I feel like we need to discuss. As we also move forward to the next year and what standards need to be adopted in the next fiscal year, there's one coming out on compensated absences. And so it may or may not have effect on you. I don't think that's been measured at this point in time. Typically, I would say organizations, or I should say governments, have always been accruing for their vacation, and how they handle sick time has been a little bit more of the issue. And so this standard kind of addresses that, and you'll have to kind of come up with an estimate on the sick time if you think it will be usable. So there might be an adjustment for that going forward. Looks like they're still scrambling. Okay. So just some other general observations that I just wanted to say. If a couple improvements going forward as we're kind of winding this down. At the end of the audit, we would like to maybe more timely get some of the fixed asset information, which I do think they have a plan going forward, and I understand though that's really voluminous, but that's kind of something. And then inside the financials, you also will note that a component unit of the college is the foundation. And so we have to show those numbers, and those come from separate auditors. And so we do have to kind of wait. We can't issue it without that information. And so that does kind of come towards more of the end. And if we could improve that timing, it might help maybe this whole process a little better. Okay, come on, Julie.
So the majority of that is in your restricted purpose fund, so it's kind of where all the grants run through, but it's in for like your Center for Workforce and College for Kids is kind of what goes in there. But we can look further into that to give you a little more detail if you'd like.
Okay. Oh, she wants me to read you to the ICCB definition. The public service consists of non-credit classes and other activities of an educational nature, such as workshops, seminars, forums, exhibits, and the provision of college facilities and expertise to the community designed to be of service to the public. So, yeah, so you stumped me, but we got there. So that's why we bring resources. So if I had to summarize, honestly, in all opinion, you have good numbers and you have good people, and I'm proud to say that. So I thank you for the opportunity of engaging us, and if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, or Dwight knows how to get a hold of us. Thank you.
Robin. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The strategic plan update.
Yeah, so we'll have just a very brief update from each of our key direction leads, just a little bit of context. So now twice a year, we have a mid-year sort of retreat to check in with how we're moving along against the goals that we set. And then we have our sort of wrap up, or what we call the refresh retreat in May. So this is kind of our mid-year check-in with the board, just to give you all a high-level perspective of where we are across Key Direction 1, which goes first, which is focused on enrollment. We'll hear from Key Direction 2, which is focused on programs and curriculum, then Key Direction 3 on culture and team, and then, of course, Key Direction 4, which is the technology focus. So, Dr. Jackson, thank you.
Hi. So I am I don't like sponsor. I am the, I guess the co-lead of KD1. And we have two amazing leads for KD1. We have Crystal Robinson and Laura Enlow. And together they have made an amazing team and they have hit the ground running. So I just wanted to introduce them and thank them for such a great job. And they'll give you just some quick updates on the progress for KD1.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Laura Enlow. I'll get us started and try to keep this as brief as possible since I know you have 4 key directions to hear from. We're going to touch on about 5 key achievements that we've made so far. I'm going to touch on the first 2 and then let Crystal take it from there. The first is that we completed a student media survey with Interact Communications called Media Prefs. The results of that survey gave us really good insights regarding student media consumption as well as communication preferences. And so we used those to inform our practices moving forward. We had 304 student respondents, about 76% female, 77% white, and 97.7% credit seeking. We got a lot of data, way more than I can give to you guys today, but we can certainly send that to your emails if you'd like to see more. But some of the standout bits of information I wanted to bring to attention today. 92.44% said that they use video streaming services, and of those, 78.29% do not pay to remove the video ads, so you'll see how that comes into play shortly. 62.54% said that our presence on social media is important to them. Another question asked them the kinds of information that they want to see on social media, which told us that we're kind of on the right track. 66.93% college events and activities. After that, they want to see scholarship information, student life information, and financial aid. As I said, all of those kind of informed our decisions when it came to communications and advertising buys. So the second thing that we achieved was our expanded targeted digital marketing efforts. We expanded our efforts in over-the-top video, which is the kind of video you see when you're watching ad-supported video streaming services, as well as YouTube. And then we also added advertising to our TikTok and Snapchat efforts. Our Discover Your Path ad campaign, which featured alumni ambassador Mike Keith Teague, which you guys saw before, of course, won a Silver Medallion Award at the NCMPR District Conference this fall. And the videos continue to perform well in terms of views, impressions, and click-throughs. We are currently working with the digital streaming and broadcast media program to plan and set up interviews for the next iteration of that, which is going to focus a little bit more on our outstanding alumni from other programs. And then those efforts kind of bring us to our first update from Crystal. Thank you.
Good evening. One of the other things that we were able to achieve in the past year is we had planned to increase our billable credit hours. And for 23 and 24, we met that. And the overall goal was to increase it 2% year over year, and we actually exceeded that for last year, and we are on target to meet or exceed it for 24-25. So that is great news, and some of that actually was highlighted in the financial report that you all just got just a short time ago. One of the other things that we did that actually went live this for spring enrollment was we added risk identifiers to our intake application. So we did that because what we're trying to do is capture students who might have issues or who might fall short or fall through the cracks. And we want to be able to identify those students much earlier than we had in the past. So by asking a few extra questions on the application, we can kind of put some red flags up just so that we can be watchful and attentive to those students. The fifth thing that we did, we established subgroups, because as you can tell, all of the key directions are pretty vast, and the work is ongoing, it's never ending, and every so often we get even more work put on us by Dr. T. We love it, Dr. T, thank you so much. But in order for us to really get our hands dirty with this, what we did is we created subgroups of our main KD1 group. So our overall goal was to improve recruitment and retention, and what we did is we set up 5 subgroups, and then we engaged people across campus in addition to faculty to try to get them and their buy-in to help us do some of this work. The 5 subgroups that we have a group called Persistence, one specifically for recruitment, another for engagement, the enrollment marketing, and then advising. And so those were the 5 subgroups. And as we move forward, and I know that we are pressed for time, one of the things that Dr. T said this morning was he wanted us to all be dynamic and find ways to be even more dynamic. And that is, I really took that in because I think that we're going to be able to incorporate that even more into KD1. But some of the things that we're working on, just so you know, and you'll probably hear at the end of this school year, we are creating a high quality admissions guide, and actually it's going to be 2-tiered. It's going to be 1 targeting parents so that we can be a place of choice for parents in the area to send their children, as well as for students, but also non-traditional students. We also are doing some more marketing improvements. We're also changing kind of our advising model to where we shift the focus from just scheduling classes to where there's a shared responsibility between the advisor and the student to get that student active in their own career path. And the last thing that we're really focusing in is building a campus culture of recruitment and retention, which includes everyone in this room, even you all, because we need everyone to understand that if we're going to get more students in the door, it's going to take more than just the enrollment team. And if we're going to keep the students that we have, it's going to take more than just the people who are providing student services and the great faculty that we have. It's going to take everyone. So thank you so much for your time, and you will hear from us later. Yay, KD1.
Thank you both. Awesome job. And now we'll hear from KD2. Dr. Swinski, I think both Randy and Tom as well. Thank you.
I don't have any problem with being a sponsor since we're AA, so I'm their AA sponsor. And I have 2 great deans here, and they're going to be the leads of KD2, investing in program and curriculum development.
Good evening. My name is Tom Steinman. I'm the Dean of STEM, and I am proud to announce that KD2 is exceeding all expectations. Our own expectations. So the mid-year highlights that Randy and I will touch on tonight very briefly will fall into 4 categories: new or upcoming trainings, programs, offerings, course offerings, along with curriculum updates. We are proud to announce that we have in the past year secured 4 grants. I'm going to talk about 2 of those grants. Randy will talk about the other 2. In the vocational area, our grants total about $234,000. And with that with that money, we have already stood up a CDL-B truck driving program and a drone pilot training program. I think we've talked about that in previous board meetings. Under development, we have an expansion of our fire science program, a line cook program, phlebotomy, home health aid, and emergency medical dispatchers. So those are all things that we are currently working on that will be stood up hopefully in the next year. New courses that are close to being approved are data science and drone pilot training. That'll be a credit-bearing course, and hopefully those will both be approved in the next 6 months, and we might even be able to offer them this fall. And then we're really excited 1 year from now, if things go well, we hope to reboot up our LPN program.
So for the other grants, we had what are called Taking Back the Trades grants. The first one of those was awarded to us $346,000. And we're using that to build our avionics program. We've spoken, I think, before about avionics. If you're not familiar, avionics is basically all of the electrical components within a jet or a plane. So we're building that program that is in process. We're branching that out of our industrial electricity program, which matches nicely with it. The second grant, we were just awarded $300,000. We found out about that right before Christmas break, so a nice Christmas present. And we're going to be using that to develop sheet metal program and upholstery program, which will also tie in with the aviation industry, is the point of that. Courses that are being developed in my area, which I didn't say, liberal arts, business, and information technology. We have a new human services program that was developed by Dr. Chad Keller. That was a significant lift, 11 brand new courses for that program and 2 major revamps of existing courses for that program. We just found out, again, right at Christmas break, that we now have HLC approval for that program, so we can now officially promote that program, and we're looking at starting that program course offerings in the fall. Another emerging program that we have is sports management. That program consists of 3 new courses, and that was developed by Nick Hand. And for that particular program, again, three courses that are going to connect to the management program, and so it's going to be a certificate of completion. That we found out, I found out today, was approved by ICCB. So we still have to go through HLC for that program, but we're looking at, again, hopefully a fall start for that particular program. A couple of additional things: payroll accounting. The coordinator of our business program noticed a need for this particular course, and so this particular payroll accounting course will allow students to sit for a beginner certification with the American Payroll Association. And so this one course is going to prepare them for that particular exam, and so it will lead to a quick employment opportunity for students who are interested. We also have a data analytics course that's coming. By the way, that payroll accounting course is in the approval process, so should be approved tomorrow at Curriculum Committee, and then move on to ICCB. Along with that, we have the data analytics, which matches with what Tom was talking about for accounting, and that also should hopefully be approved by Curriculum tomorrow and move forward. Another aspect of what we do with KD2, we're tied to CBE, and so we've brought in 2 consultants to help with the development of CBE programs. One of those consultants is working directly with Child Development Coordinator, Dr. John Phillips, to complete the CBE option for that program. That is significant because once that the end of February, we anticipate that will be ready to submit to HLC. And once that is approved by HLC, that opens the doors for a lot of, it makes a simpler process for other programs to be approved. So we're really excited about that. The second consultant is working with faculty to develop a core bundle of general education courses. And so, again, that work is going on as we speak. The last thing that I have to mention is assessment. A big element of what we are doing has to be assessed, right? And so we assess a lot. And so even just today, our faculty during the meeting was working on developing program learning outcomes or revising program learning outcomes for their programs. And so that work is going on as part of our HLC work. Okay.
Thank you both. Now, KD3.
All right, KD3, really quickly, I'm the sponsor of KD3, and I think we've got Val and Debbie here to talk to you. Just a reminder that KD3 is all about improving our internal and external stakeholder engagements with Lewis and Clark. So, Val?
Whew. I'm just talking, and I have amazing Debbie support to answer the specific questions. We have 5 goals that will help us improve internal and external stakeholder engagement. The first is, it feels really loud. Is it really loud? I'm sorry. Okay. The first is to improve across Lewis and Clark's annual culture survey categories. That survey has just been released and will be closed in early February. It's anonymous. However, there's an opportunity for team members to provide also written feedback and comments, and we'll be having some incentives for people to complete that survey. So there will be more to come on the first goal. Our second goal is exploring team member expectations and experiences through the efforts of our Blue Crew. So the Blue Crew put together a feedback survey, and we received 150 responses to that survey. We're still kind of culling through some of that data, but we felt really happy about the number of responses. We also have been giving values-driven recognition tokens this year, and we have delivered to over 221 tokens to 111 team members so far. The Blue Crew has, with the help of IT, installed messaging boards across the campus and all the campuses. So that's a connecting strategy, I guess. We've got a makerspace in the library. We have connecting spaces across campus with the Adirondack chairs sitting around where students and team members can sit and connect informally. Our third goal is increasing participation in culture building activities through our Katie Cup and team appreciation events. So we're tracking points, and there will be a winner, either staff, faculty, or student, happening at the May State of Trailblazer Nation. We have Trailblazing at the Dock coming up at the end of January, the last Monday. Feel free to join us. It's in the evening. It'll be fun. And goal 4, we have only 5, so we're almost there, is to increase membership in our Lewis and Clark Alumni Association by 20%. We currently have 848 members, over 783 last year, so we're halfway there. And when we reach out to our alumni at a commencement, we'll be like well over that goal, so yay. Whoop, yay, Debbie. And our final goal is a capital campaign, which is, we're right at the beginning, but at the December Foundation board meeting, the directors approved funding for a feasibility study of the campaign, so we have a good start. Any questions? Anything else you guys want to say? We all talked about what to say.
Yeah.
Just
Cody's
the
part
mouthy
of
one.
us too.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. And finally, Ron.
Move that a little bit. So good evening. My name's Ron Wall, and I'm here to give you an update on KD4, which is investing in data and technology transformation. So I am the lead and sponsor this year. We're new, so our arrangement's a little bit different. But I also have had a lot of assistance from Chris McLaughlin, Mary Jo Flaherty, Brian Jousel, and Sean Koppel. Mary Jo and Chris are in the audience with me today in case things get really rough. So I want to take a couple moments to list some of our achievements, and I'm very thankful to say that there are many more than I can list in just 3 minutes, but here are some highlights. So regarding IT governance, we've completed implementing a IT purchasing policy, so now all IT and technology purchases must be approved by IT. This has allowed us to correct multiple incorrect purchases. We can interrupt those, fix them before they are finalized. One of those was over $7,000. This has also reduced the college's risk. We have saved over $6,000 by utilizing IT's resources to provide better pricing for the things that other departments want to purchase. It's also increased the standardization of hardware and software used on campus. Additionally, we have implemented a central location for monitoring and listing and tracking IT projects, which has allowed us to more efficiently prioritize those and report on them. For enabling data-driven decisions, we now have 3 dashboards on our webpage. I urge you to go check those out. It allows us to easily track at a glance enrollment statistics and reduces the need for IT to generate reports, and those are what Cerise and her team uses every week to give you the enrollment updates. We've published 63 data definitions, and more data definitions are being added all the time. We've digitized several manual and paper processes, including benefits enrollment, budget development, payment request, and we've expanded the use of JotForm, which is an online form creation tool. For specific progress on our goals, despite a 65% increase in our IT governance goal, we still have completed 55% of that. You know, the goal's always moving up. IT strategic plan is 20% complete. We are changing the scope of that because we originally was going to plan for a 3-year, but technology is changing so quickly that 3 years, by the time 3 years is up, it's kind of out of date, so we're moving that to a 1-year plan. That'll also make it a little easier for us to accomplish in the time frame that we have. Data-driven decision-making is 65% complete, and reducing manual and paper processes is 75% complete. So looking ahead, we've gained significant experience in managing the KD4 goals. Remember, we are new to this, so we're learning a lot. The next iteration of the KD4 goals, we're going to be reevaluating those because the current ones do not really have a good scope of everything that we do. And so we want them to more accurately reflect our activities. And for example of that, you know, cybersecurity is not listed as one of our current goals, but that is an extremely strategically important aspect, so we want to make sure that that gets included. So that is my quick 3-minute update, and if there are any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? So thank
you.
And there's
more on the way.
I mean, if you want to, I mean, I was going to send some of this to the board, but do you want to loosely allude to what you shared with me today in terms of some of the concepts you have for the additional dashboard?
Yeah, so we're working on one. Hopefully it will go, we can show more of it in the next few weeks, but we're linking revenue and expenditures to full-time student equivalent enrollment, so that way we can see how much money is being brought in and being spent per our FTE for students.
So yeah, it'll be very helpful for us when we make decisions or when we're considering sort of some of this big picture stuff. And I just want to thank everyone who came up. And you know, obviously this is for me all about transparency and having goals that are reasonable and reflect our ability to support students. And I think on the data side and on the dashboard side, I mean, it's sort of the running joke for a while that we've really been pushing for the dashboards. And Ron and his team, and this is really in coordination with everyone, has just done a great job in continuing to move these things forward. So thank you all so very much, and couldn't do it without the board, and I mean that. I mean, thank you for the support and just believing in this work as we navigate through it, so thank you.
Thank you. everyone for your presentations and sharing all the great things that you're doing at Lewis and Clark. It's exciting to hear about. Now we're on to the omnibus agenda.
The omnibus agenda is president for a vote. Is there any item the board would like to be held out, voted separately? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the omnibus agenda. Motion. Second? Discussion? Call for the roll, please.
McCaig,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Ware,
Yes.
Campbell, Wertz,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes. Under action items of faculty seniority.
Do I have a motion to approve? Motion. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call for the roll.
McCaig,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Ware,
Yes.
Campbell, Wertz,
Yes.
Johnson.
Motion passes.
Dr. Tresca? is
Yeah,
there
so,
anything?
so as I traditionally do, if there's any questions, I do want to highlight two new items. Chairman Wirtz and I talked a little bit about this, kind of bringing in two specifically, one on the capital project update. You know, this will be a update that you'll see every month, as well as deferred maintenance. It'll allow us to provide you and the public just an ongoing sort of update on what's happening within the capital development project, meaning the main complex. That has been a very dynamic process, and I was going to allude a little bit more in my update on where we are with that. And then the deferred maintenance update, which kind of provides a prioritized list of all of those deferred maintenance projects across campus, including the PHS projects. And so you'll see in that list, you know, updates when there are relevant updates, you know, reflected each month. Now, of course, if there are significant things that happen across either of those areas, you know, as I've traditionally done, I'll update the board sort of with an intermittent sort of narrative saying, hey, something moved here, you know, just want to give you a heads up on this. I've also asked Dr. Artis to kind of lead sort of both C and B going forward as kind of the primary point person, and so I'll let her chime in a little bit in terms of process. And then also she could talk a little bit about recognition report, which she traditionally has done if she'd like to. Other than that, that's all. Thanks.
I'm going to move this off Ron Height. Okay. Actually, I really want to focus on a recognition report first and foremost because I wasn't expecting 8 of our 13 amazing maintenance team members who are here with us this evening. But while you guys are here and while we have an audience, I just can't say enough about the work and the hours, which I haven't seen timesheets yet, but I know that some of these guys spent 12 and 14 hours a day every single day last week on this campus trying to get this place ready and open. And so I want to give them some credit, and I also want to give some credit to Mickey and Brad as well, who on Friday, we made a very difficult decision after talking with some of our maintenance leadership. By Friday, we had equipment breaking down, we had team members breaking down from just days of shoveling, because as you guys know, we don't normally get a foot of snow. We not only had a foot of snow, but we had refreeze after refreeze after refreeze, and this team just really killed it, dedicated. Never asked, do I have to be here? They were just here. So I do just want to recognize Wolf and Aaron and Dallas and Mike, and Matt and Charles and Quentin who are here with us, and again, Mickey and Brad who brought in reinforcements on Friday to come help shovel just because we just needed it at that point. So please join me in a round of applause. I hope I haven't missed anyone who snuck in the room, but I really just want to recognize them. Again, they killed it for us while we sat at home nice and warm and got updates from Matt and Wolf begging us to please close. And thank you, Jill, for allowing me to text you and figure out what Bethalto was doing.
I know the board feels this way too. It was miserable outside, and just the thinking, you know, the idea that we're all sitting at home doing what we do and you guys are out making sure we can come to work and do what we need to do. it's a thankless job, so thank you for being here tonight so we can recognize you, because we couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Leadership team reports?
So that would just be back to me. I'm back. Here we go. So I'll keep it short, or try to. So I think Crystal alluded to this morning, we had our all team sort of welcome back, and went really well. I mean, you know, again, it's my sort of annual appeal to the team, and just showing the appreciation that I think we all have for the work that everybody does each day. And, you know, my challenge to everyone is to, and I think I used the sort of a constructive disagreement to sort of, you know, look at ways to really challenge each other, to really push each other to realize that we have to take on this dynamic environment that we're in. And so just appreciate everybody being back and ready to put our heads down and kind of get to work for another great semester. A couple of really quick things. So right before the break, I had another follow-up meeting with Capital Development Board Exec Director and got some really good news where in February we'll get this formally, but it looks like a significant amount of time will be shaved off of the main complex. A lot of that is they naturally bake in a lot of extra time, so a lot of that is sort of, you know, sort of a tongue-in-cheek way to say this is being unbaked. At the same time, there are some caveats. I mean, we have to be able to move forward with our roofs and some other things, and so I'll be talking with the board a little bit more about how that process will go forward, but these are all the PHS qualifying dollars, so we're sort of moving the main complex roof to the top of that list, and you'll be informed as we begin to kind of move that forward. I mean, essentially, we're looking, and Dr. Artis is leading on this, we're looking at likely a March, hopefully by March timeline, we'll be able to kind of show you bid documents and be able to move that forward. They won't be able to begin the abatement process until that's done. But we're looking at least a year, potentially up to a year and a half or more of time being cut off a project that was looking at a spring occupancy of 2028, possibly all the way to an early 27, late 26. So I appreciate everybody's effort and work, including some of our legislators who helped put, I don't want to call it pressure, but just sort of ask some questions and sort of just said, hey, listen, this is an emergency project and it shouldn't take 6 years. So good things happening there. Some other good news, and I'll provide a little bit more update on this over the next couple of months, but had a chance to meet with one of our deputy governors, as well as, and Gabe's been a little bit involved in this one as well, and working with Senator Harris and Representative Ellick. We all know that over time, the college has had some ramp dollars. So there are a couple of projects on campus that have kind of been in the coffers, or they're deposited on an annual basis to the state. And those are no longer priorities for the institution. And so there's a high likelihood we'll be able to shift those dollars to more relevant areas that really support the work that Randy and Tom talked about around workforce development. And so there's some work being done behind the scenes with Westar, Gulfstream, and Wieland to get letters of support to sort of shift those dollars into technology, into equipment, potentially facilities to support emerging workforce needs. Specifically, this would be focused on avionics, but have the ability to expand to, let's say, welding needs expansion or automotive needs expansion, or, you know, or anything else that will have some dynamic ability to do that. So a lot of people are involved in that one, so I'll keep you all updated as that moves forward. Later this month, the exec team and I meet for really the first kind of deep dive. I mean, we've met and we've sort of been hanging out in the shallow end on budget, et cetera, but we really take a full day dive into budget planning for next year. And as you've already heard, we're moving, excuse me, to a zero-based budget process, which will allow us not only to be more efficient, but really to be able to allocate the dollars our team needs to get the work done. And of course, with zero base, it doesn't mean that, hey, I've got something I really want to try. I want to be a little innovative here. Actually, you know, you're challenging us to do that, right? There will be ways to make that happen, but we're trying to take a little bit of a different approach to be able to be a little bit more, or at least have the ability to plan ahead a little bit more and then understand really where this budget's going to end year over year. And Mary and I have been working on that, Cindy, and so we're doing some, and I know Cindy hosted a session, I think, today with faculty and other team members who are involved in that budget planning. And, you know, as I've told the team, it's not anything to really be scared about or worry about. We're just taking a different look at budget process and planning, and that they will have the resources they need to do the important work that needs to be done. In a couple of weeks, or three weeks or so, I'll head to DC for the ACCT trip that I do. This is a legislative summit. There's a number of meetings set up with local legislators there, as well as hosting probably one or two alumni events. Just another shout out to Debbie and the team on the foundation side. We've had such an amazing response to the alumni newsletter we're sending out. I'm getting personal emails, folks wanting to meet. So I mean, there's up to possibly as many as 8 to 10 alum in the DC area that are wanting to meet. And actually, interestingly enough, I forget her name, but one of our alum, there are 6 sisters that all went to Monticello, and they all want to meet. And several of them are saying, listen, our kids live there, we'll fly in, let us know when you're there. And then, of course, meeting some of the regulars that I usually meet as we continue to build those relationships. But looking forward to that trip again, and advocating for Lewis and Clark. And then right before the end of the semester, I wanted to allude to this. We had a great meeting. A lot of the folks you heard from tonight were around that table at SIUE. But Chancellor Minor and I have really gotten to know each other well, and we're really looking at ways that we can better align our institutions. I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, we're competitors, but in a lot more ways, I think there's opportunities for us to align programs. We've talked loosely about some CBE to CBE opportunities. Their new business dean is an amazing gentleman, and he has already talked to us specifically around looking at IT, and that's one that's in our sort of arsenal of what's coming next with CBE. We're looking at how we can create stronger transfer pathways between Lewis and Clark and SIUE, and so really happy with where I think that partnership can go. And I also did have a note on here to thank our maintenance team, who really just make this place work, and just want to thank you guys personally as well for just rocking and rolling and making this place safe and putting in those hours. I know I certainly appreciate it. I had a team member drive by my house and I was on the phone with our chairman, and I'm like, who's this guy in the front of my house taking pictures? Well, it ended up being one of our team members said, hey, Dr. T, you need to shovel. And I basically said, listen, I have a partnership with the Sun, and by Friday, they've assured me that this stuff will be gone. It's not gone. So I've been just plowing through. I did shovel a little bit, but in all seriousness, thank you, fellas, for being an amazing fellas, and thank you again to everyone for just, I think we're off on the right start this semester, and look forward to a great 3 or 4 months together here as we keep moving forward and helping our students become better and move on to bigger and better things. So with that being said, I'm all set. Thank you.
I have a question for you regarding, so I should have asked Randy and Tom, but what is your plan to get the information and the news out about all the new programs you guys are going to be putting into place to like our local high schools and things?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a plan.
So yeah, there is, and that's in partnership with 1 and 2, and you know, Laura talked up front. So if you want to talk a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes there, yeah. And as you're coming up, I pulled this up on my phone because I've had a lot of people, hey, can you share that quote from this morning? There's a quote I shared at the end of my talk this morning by Alex Morit that says, new year, a new chapter, new verse, or just the same old story. Ultimately, we write it, the choice is ours. And so that's really to sort of press all of us to make that choice to keep making Lewis and Clark the best it can be. Back to you, Dr. C.
So I think we're going to work through our liaisons that are in the high schools. They'll get all the information. We also, I know Yvette puts together a newsletter out to all the counselors. Every semester, Yvette and I have calls with principals and superintendents and just kind of find out what's going on in their place and let them know what's going on with ours. So as we start to get these new programs online, everybody will know about it. Yeah, we're going to blast it. We're really excited about getting some new opportunities. So, any other questions?
Yeah, she did. She yelled at me. She said, what do you mean you didn't shovel?
I did.
My
I
driveway's a
did
lot
shovel,
longer than
and my
yours."
driveway is about 6 times longer than his
I have
driveway.
I have a really short driveway.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
shoveled.
So yeah, and I think the good news, and not to sort of beat the CBE drum, but a great thing with these short-term certificates is they are truly dynamic and they allow for some agility within their delivery. So just, it's opening up a lot more doors, and I think Crystal alluded to it, is that non-traditional student population is a huge opportunity for us as well. So with that being said, I'll be quiet now. Yep.
Westar and all the opportunities that exist there, and
Huge. Yep.
you guys creating these career pathways, I'm like, it's exciting.
So it's coming together, so,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yep.
I don't adjourn the meeting, that's you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn for closed session?
Motion.
Second? Any discussion? Call for the roll, please.
McCaig?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Ware?
Yes.
Campbell? Wertz?
Yes.
Johnson? Rust?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Motion passed. There'll be no discussion, there'll be no action taken after the closed session. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.